Just to reiterate the rules for those of you who don't know there, it's very important that you remain seated at all times. The wheelhouse where our captain and engineer sits, and Chris and James in there today, is at the back of the boat. If you stand up, it will obstruct the view. May not end well. I'd like to leave this drive. You can, however, head downstairs if you like to sit downstairs. If you'd like to head downstairs to use the toilets there at the back of the boat, we've got an onboard shop as well, selling snacks, cold drinks, ice cream, slushies, and best of all, alcohol, which I'm told makes my cruises much more bearable. We do have one more very important rule on the London Eye River cruise, and that is we will pass underneath quite a lot of bridges over the next 45 minutes. It is very important every time we pass underneath the bridge, you wave at the strangers on that bridge. Here is your first opportunity to do so with the Westminster Bridge. I will remind you though, you are in London. If you wave at a stranger, I cannot guarantee that will be the same hand gesture they give back.
We need to wait from them.
There we go. There we go. There are some happy people in London. Right, we will start with this building on our right. That is of course the Houses of Parliament. To give it its official name, it is the New Palace of Westminster. If this is the New Palace of Westminster, then there must have been an Old Palace of Westminster. And there was, it belonged to the monarchy until Henry VIII decided Westminster Bridge was green. If you've ever watched them on television, you know the House of Commons have green benches, the House of Lords have red benches. The reason for all this colour coordination is because the two houses are kept separate at all times. Separate chambers, separate dining areas, even used to use separate bridges to use separate entrances into the building. And the reason for all this separation is to avoid corruption, which we know works very well because there's absolutely no corruption in Parliament whatsoever. Just before we turn around, if you look to the end of the building, at the end of the palace, you'll see a small building, not that rather modern grey quarter cabin, that's far too new, but the stone building at the top of a set of steps. That is a very old prison dated back from the days of the Old Palace of Westminster, a very tiny prison in fact. If you were ever tried for treason in the palace, you'd be kept in there overnight, and the following morning walked down those steps, put into a boat, taken down to the Tower of London to be executed. A bit like the journey we're about to do today, hopefully with less executions, which we cannot guarantee. So we put a giant banner on the roof of County Hall stating the unemployment rate in the UK right across the river from Parliament. As you can imagine, Margaret Thatcher was not very happy about that. She decided she had enough and got rid of the GLC completely. These days though, County Hall is home to various attractions such as Shrek's Adventure, London Dungeons, the Sea Life Centre. And of course, in front of County Hall today, we have the London Eye. That's that big wheel on the right, in case you missed it. Now, the London Eye is not a Ferris wheel. If anyone tries to tell you it is, you can be very smug about it and tell them they are wrong. It is a cantilevered observation wheel, cantilevered just being a fancy way of saying supported from one side. Observation because the pods are on the outside of the structure. It is 135 metres tall. How did they build it? Well, they built the structure in a horizontal position, parallel to the water, and then used the largest cranes in the world to hoist it up into that vertical position in time for the new millennium in the year 2000. That makes the London Eye 22 years old this year, and not to make any of you feel old, but that means it's older than me. If you have never been bored enough to count how many pods there are on the London Eye, don't worry, I have. The answer is 32, one for each borough of Greater London. Now, the London Eye was part of a design competition to design a new landmark for the new millennium, and it came second place. Some people know better, but British Airways love the design so much, they put forward the £75 million themselves to have it built. Originally just supposed to be a temporary structure lasting just 5 years, it proved so popular and, more importantly to some people, made so much money, it was decided to made out of very clever material called Portland stone. The reason why it's very clever is because it's self-cleaning. Every time it rains, the bridge gives itself a wash. Believe me, it rains a lot here in London. It's a very, very clean bridge. Sometimes even Broadway transfers. So you never know, you could be seeing the next big West End hit there before it has its transfer. Over on your left, the white boat you can see moored up, not to be confused with this white boat that's conveniently passing by at the same time. The one in the background with the yellow funnel, that is the Wellington, dates back from the Second World War. Disguised as an unarmed merchant ship, it would go out and lure any U-boats to the surface. They wouldn't want to waste their torpedoes on a merchant ship. They'd come to the top of the water, use their guns instead, at which point the sides of the Wellington could drop down, revealing cannons that could blow them away. Very successful career. It's been moored up here in the Thames since 1948, but if you look behind the Wellington, you'll see an archway, and next to that archway you'll see two silver dragons. And once we pass those silver dragons, that means we have crossed the border into the City of London. I know people thought you were in London the whole time, but you haven't. You've been in the City of Westminster. City of London, that area in the distance with all the funny shaped skyscrapers. It is the oldest part of London. It's where the Romans settled in the middle of the 1st century. Originally a city entirely surrounded by a wall, when the population grew, it spilled over that wall into the neighbouring City of Westminster. City of London, area for commerce; City of Westminster, area for royalty. It was decided the two should not be mixed, although modern London is made up of a combination of the two, Greater London made up of the 32 surrounding boroughs. City of London has its own police force, its own taxi service, even has its own Lord Mayor, who once a year invites the Queen to step over into the city as she needs special permission to do so. But the reason why the skyscrapers in the City of London are such funny shapes is because of this building on our left, St Paul's Cathedral. By law, St Paul's Cathedral is one of the 13 sites of points around London. From an old Dominican friary, the friars who lived there would wear black mantles over their white robes, hence the nickname of the Black Friars. That religious connection is why the columns on this bridge are designed to look like pulpits. But if you have a look at those columns, you will see there are some birds sculpted into them. The birds on this side are freshwater birds, the birds on the columns on the other side are saltwater birds. That is because this is where the Victorians believed the freshwater and the saltwater of the River Thames met. They got their calculations slightly wrong. It's a bit further up the river behind us near Richmond, but it does make for some very decorative bridge columns anyway. St Paul's Cathedral once again on the left. This is the 5th St Paul's. The one before it was destroyed in the Great Fire of London. This one was completed in 1711. Designed by architect Sir Christopher Wren, he made it 365 feet tall. As he said, religion was for every day of the year, not just Sunday. The original didn't last very long. An actor in a production of Henry VIII decided it was a good idea to fire a live cannon in a wooden building with a thatched roof. Yeah, I think you can work out how that ended. So when they built the second Globe Theatre, they gave it on a tiled roof so that one wouldn't burn down. Didn't last much longer. The Puritans came along, decided they wanted to destroy everything that was fun. They banned theatre altogether and had the Globe torn down. We went a few hundred years without one here in London until actor and director Sam Wanamaker came over from Hollywood looking for a monument to Shakespeare, and he found nothing. He was quite disappointed, so he started up a project to build a replica of the original. To keep it true to the original, as many traditional construction methods and materials were used, no power tools were used, it's all held together. You can imagine they were not very happy when he stole it off them, so they lined up their fleet ready to capture him. But he said, I know a shortcut, got that shortcut slightly wrong, and unintentionally became the first Englishman to circumnavigate the globe. Obviously, being a pirate, when he returned, he was punished. How was he punished? With a knighthood. Yeah, so at the time, England was in debt to, well, basically the rest of the world, so he gave some of that treasure to Queen Elizabeth I. In fact, he gave her enough treasure she could pay off that debt not once, not twice, but 3 times over. As you can imagine, she was very happy and appreciative of that. It was Sir Francis Drake in 1581. Needless to say, if you wish to receive an honour from the Queen's Day, stealing Spanish treasure is not the way to go about it, and you would be looked down upon if you tried. In fact, if you look to your right and then look up, you will see the Shard, the tallest building in all of Western Europe, designed by architect Renzo Piano. It is 309 metres tall. And within those 309 metres, there are offices, there's a restaurant, it's one of those pretentious 7-star hotels, and there are some very expensive apartments. A penthouse at the top of the Shard will set you back £45 million. And for that heavy price tag, you have the luxury of not being allowed to open your window as it ruins the look of the building. Yeah, probably not really worth it. But coming up ahead of us, if you can see it, might be two cruiser, the HMS Belfast. Named after the city it was built in. In fact, it was even built in the same docks as the Titanic, but it had a far more successful career than that ship. It played a part in the sinking of the Scharnhorst by some of the first shots at D-Day landings in Normandy, served in the Korean War, and then it was supposed to be sold for scrap. But the Imperial War Museum, they stepped in, they won it at an auction for the bargain price of £1. which really upsets me because it means I spent all my lunch today than they did on an entire warship. They towed it here to the Thames, opened it up as a floating museum. You may notice those forward guns are angled slightly though, almost as if they are targeting something specific. And they have a range of 12 miles. If they were fired in that position today, they would score a direct hit on London Gateway services on the M1. So if you're ever driving down the M1 and need to stop somewhere, probably think twice before you pull in there. The funny shaped building coming up on the right behind the Belfast, that is City Hall. When the Greater London Authority were formed, they were an American style organisation. They wanted to give their headquarters an American style name, so they went for the very American sounding City Hall. But the City of London is to the left of us, north of the river, and City Hall is to the right of us, south of the river. The Khan and his friends have now moved down the river to the Crystal near Greenwich, meaning that building sits vacant, empty, and without much of a use. But we are now, of course, coming up to the world famous Tower Bridge. And you probably thought it was called London Bridge, but it isn't. This one is Tower Bridge. It was completed in 1894, even though it looks a lot older than that. In fact, the Brooklyn Bridge in New York City is even older than this one. There's a very good reason why it looks so old. In the 1880s, this area of London we are now in, the old port of London, where all the cargo ships used to come in, was becoming very congested. A new river crossing was needed. There had to be a bridge that somehow opened up so as to let the ships through. So the chief architect at the time, a man named Sir Horace Jones, he held a bridge design competition. He looked at all the entries and he decided that the winner of that competition was Sir Horace Jones. I know, how very vain. In that competition there were spinning bridges, sliding bridges, swing bridges and super tall bridges, but he decided to go for his own design of a Bastille bridge, Bastille being French for seashore, describing how the road in the middle rises up.
No.
Sit down whilst you're up here. Sit down whilst you're up here. You will see there are some walkways connecting the two towers along the top. They used to be open to pedestrians. They were closed in 1910 as they were found in the Thames. There was an elephant on a strict diet, red wine only under the orders of the King of Spain. Yeah, we didn't really know what to do with these animals. So when the RSPCA was formed, they had the zoo closed down. The animals moved to a site at Regent's Park, forming the basis for London Zoo which we have today. I've only scratched the surface on the history of the Tower of London. It has a fascinating history dating back almost 1,000 years to the days of William the Conqueror. It is well worth a visit. If you do go along, you get to see the crown jewels. They are guarded by the beefeaters. If you ask the beefeaters very nicely, they'll be very happy to give you a tour of the tower for free. They are some of the best tour guides in the world. Be sure to give them a nice tip if you visit. If you go along though, I will let you know now that this shop no longer sells fingers and corn toes. Bridge for almost 700 years. The Bridge House Trust nowadays also look after Blackfriars Bridge, Millennium Bridge and Tower Bridge. Medieval London Bridge replaced by Victorian London Bridge, designed by architect Sir John Rennie and his son, also an architect, also confusingly named John Rennie. Two Rennies if you will. But in the 1960s it was discovered their bridge was sinking into the riverbed. Yes, London Bridge really was falling down. So they sold it. The galaxy. It was destroyed by Death Eaters at the start of Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. On the right it leads to St Paul's Cathedral, on the left it leads to the old Bankside Power Station. Designed by Sir Giles Gilbert Scott, who also designed Revolution. Reopened in the year 2000 and contained modern art gallery, boasts a very impressive collection of 20th and 21st century modern art. If modern art is not really your thing, there's also a cocktail bar on the top floor. Maybe after a visit there you'll appreciate glass a bit more. It is a bit further along that glass building on the left, that is London's newest skyscraper, number 1 Blackfriars. Now, as you saw back at the City of London, we like to give our skyscrapers nicknames here, but we haven't got an official one-for-one Blackfriars yet. There have been some suggestions, such as the Cocktail Shaker, the Bars, the Baby Bath, the Boomerang, and the Kim Kardashian. I'm sure it is better. It was built in response to a report that said there wasn't enough affordable housing in the area, so they built that, filled it with apartments, and actually waited 60 years before we tried to move it over here. How do you move a 20-ton obelisk? Well, you lay it on its side, put it in a steel tube, and then roll it into the water to be towed to London. There was a storm in the Bay of Biscay, the tow ropes had to be cut, it was left to drift at sea for almost a year, until it was finally found, put in its final resting place there on the embankment. You will see it is guarded by 2 sphinxes. Now, traditionally, sphinxes are supposed to be looking away from what they are guarding to be, effective guards, not those ones that are looking towards the needle, being there either protecting us from the obelisk, or the Victorians just didn't really know what they were doing in the latter. Coming back to the Golden Jubilee bridges now, when these bridges were built, they were a bit worried about coming across unexploded World War II bombs on the riverbed, so very cautious They dug the foundations out by hand using miners who could hold their breath for a very long time. When they were built, the London Eye was a mere 2 years old, so it was decided to design them in a way that was sympathetic to the eye, and that's why they have matching white suspension cables. Just Londoners are far too visual for anything fun like that.
Say to Jones.
When it had a population of 1 million. The population of London is now 9 million, which means we are upgrading to a super sewer. We're getting bigger sewage pipes to move around all that increased level of waste. It just goes to show 200 years later, us Londoners really are still full of it. But the building behind those cranes, that is Whitehall Court, named after the old Whitehall Palace that I mentioned earlier that Henry VIII moved into. It was a huge palace. It stretched all the way from where we are now to where the Houses of Parliament are today. It was home to the monarchy for 168 years until one night a maid was drying a bedsheet over a coal fire. She left it unattended, the fire spread into the sheet and then throughout the rest of the building, almost completely destroying it with the exception of one part, the banqueting house. These days the banqueting house is opened up as a museum. It's located behind the Ministry of Defence, that building on the right with the green roof. Now we are about to begin our docking procedure, so please do remain seated. The Defence building on the right with the green roof, we refer to it as the iceberg. It's a very deceiving building, as well as what we can see above the surface. It also goes about 10 stories deep, and at the bottom of those 10 stories is a nuclear-proof bunker with enough room for the Prime Minister and 100 of his friends, if he still has any. But in 1999, when the London Eye was being built,